everyone, and today I'll be doing a custom trophy for Mosageddon, Mr. Mosasaw's Isles server, and I'll be using this Snap Squad Mosa. So first off, I'm going to sand off its numbers and trademark it has on its belly. And I'm just using my Dremel tool to sand it all off. I actually really like this Mosasaw Snap Squad. He's so adorable. So now I've got some tiny little magnets I'm going to be using so this little Mosa can sit on top of his trophy and also be played with. So these tiny little magnets I actually got from Japan. I don't know where to get them in Australia, but I believe they're doll magnets. So I'm just marking where I want the magnet to go, and now I'm using a drill bit to drill a hole for the magnet to sit in. Trying very carefully not to break through the shell of the Mosasaw. And that's it, the magnet fits. That's the magnet glued in. Time to sculpt the base. So this is a pencil box I found at a shop, and I've glued a magnet to some tinfoil to bulk out and make where I'm going to be sculpting the polymer clay a bit lighter. So that is a polymer clay sheet that I've rolled through a pasta maker. And I'm now just covering the tinfoil in polymer clay. I won't be baking the box in the oven, I'm only baking the tinfoil. So I'm just sculpting it on the box so the shape stays consistent. And once it's done in the oven, I can just glue it on. So I'm just pushing the Mosa in just to make sure he has like a key sort of place to sit where his fins sit perfectly, if that makes sense. And now I'm using leftover tinfoil to imprint into the sculpt to make it look more like rock. It's a good way to get a natural rock effect. And now I'm just pulling apart the box. I've sanded it, and I'll be covering it in a base coat of black. This is my El de Pablo black paint. It's a new paint I'm trialing, and so far I'm very happy with it. So I'm just giving the whole box and drawers a nice thick base coat. I have big plans for the colour of this box. So now I'm going in with a nice royal blue, maybe? Just a cheap acrylic paint I got, but it's got quite a nice blue to it. And I'm not covering everything, I'm going along the outside of the box, so not the inside of the drawer or the inside of the pencil area, if that makes sense. And I'm not painting the bottom of the box blue either, I'm keeping that black. This actually took 2 coats because it's such cheap acrylic paint that I'm using for the blue. So yeah, sadly I had to use 2 coats. You can see I'm not going into the actual place where the pencils go or the drawers. Now I'm sculpting coral because I want this to sort of shout out to Mosasaw's sculpture that I made for him. So yeah, I'm recreating some of the coral that he had on his sculpture. So I think it's time for question of the day. What is the question today? It is, did you have fun playing with Mr. Mosasaw? Yes, I definitely did. I think the video will be up by the time this video goes up. I am yet to see it, but I do know it was a lot of fun making that video with him. He definitely tortured me a little bit with these pranks. It was a lot of fun. Definitely 10 out of 10 would do again. As for how you'll win this score, how you could go about winning this mini Mosa sculpture, I have no clue. That is up to Mr. Mosasaw and his admin team of how you can win this. I'm pretty sure it will be an event on Mosageddon, and you'll have to play the Isles to win it. But keep an eye on his stuff to find out. So now I'm sculpting some sea anemone, and I'm trying to keep them semi-thick and leaning on each other, so if you bump them with your fingers, they don't snap. Because even though it's 2-part epoxy, it's still likely to snap if it's really thin. By the way, I'm sculpting the coral with 2-part epoxy. 2-part epoxy is a very, very strong clay and good to sculpt with, but it sets within about 2-3 hours, so you only have a small window to work in. Using many different tools here just to get the different textures of the coral. Now I'm coming in with a texture medium from Citadel. This is a sand texture medium, and I'm building up an area of sand for the base, since this is a reef and Moses was underwater. And I'm using my silicone tool and a plastic tool just to smooth it all out. I really like this texture paint, it's really nice. My favourite one is the mud texture, but today we're using the sand texture. Now I've got a sponge tool and I'm dabbing on bright pink, purple and light blue in just sort of a paintball splatter effect. Because Mosasaur's themes that style he's kind of has going is bright colours on a dark blue background, so I'm trying to imitate that by giving this sort of paintball, bright colour, neon kind of looking effect, if that makes sense. It was actually a lot of fun to do, because it was just random. I just got to dab with a sponge for a while. Quite fun. Here we go, coming in with the light blue. And these again are my cheap acrylics. I just wanted them to be subtle. If I used my proper acrylics, they would have been too thick on here. I want them to kind of blend underneath each other in some places. I'm quite happy with how it turned out. Now I'm coming in with a nice creamy grey to paint the coral rock base. It's the same grey I used on Mr. Mosasaur's. And that is the Citadel paint too. Now, the fun bit of painting the coral. I went a little bit different from Mr. Mosasaur's just because I'm still learning about painting corals. I wanted to try a few different ideas. So here I'm going in with a tan. And I've got some bright colours planned for the other pieces. It's actually a lot of fun to sculpt and paint coral. Just because there's a lot of different areas to think about and you have to try and keep them random while also making them make sense. Because there is sense to coral. There's coral's chaos, I guess that makes sense. I'm thinking too hard about this, I think. Now I'm going in with a green wash, which is a watered down paint from Citadel. And I'm going in with a brown wash for the rest of it. I love my washes, it's a great way to bring out the detail and make shadow effects. It's awesome stuff. Believe me, once it dries it looks fantastic. At the moment it looks wet and a bit too dark, but it fades once it dries and it looks so good. So now I've got these, what do you call, I guess I would call them Photoshop files that I've printed out on proper photo paper, well had printed out on proper photo paper. I've measured everything up and now I'm sticking them on using Mod Podge just to hold them down, and then I seal everything in a thick layer of liquitex varnish. But I don't keep it glossy, I just use the liquitex as a nice thick coat over the box, just to seal all the wood fibres in. Now I'm going to paint little Mosa, and I'm starting off with a base grey that I originally just wanted on the belly, but I eventually go over the whole sculpture in this colour and just start from scratch. back on my box. After I do the liquitex gloss, I do seal it all in a coat of matte varnish from Mr. Super Clear. So yes, I'm going over the whole thing with the nice grey as well. And I go onto the underbelly with this grey. I've actually watered down this grey a bit more so it's a lot thinner and doesn't clog up the joints because I want all the joints to still move. He is a bit hard to paint at sometimes, at some points, because he's just too many moving parts and little areas to grab. Now I'm going in with a lighter coat of blue over the top of the grey, so I want the grey to still shine through the blue, if that makes sense. And that's a Citadel blue. It's one of my favourite blues to use from Citadel actually, it's very beautiful. And I'm using a dry brush effect on where the blue bits meet the cream underbelly, just to give it a sort of faded off effect rather than a straight line. Now time for the teeth. And I'm using a high flow white paint. Now I'm going over with a brown wash, just to bring out all the details and to dull that blue a bit more. Again, it looks horrible at the moment, but once that brown wash dries, it looks fantastic. You can actually see the hint for my next video in the corner on the left there. That's a hypospino. Now, a nice bright green I decided on for the eyes. Don't know why, I just decided it will look good. Now the pupils. Don't ask me how I get them to line up, I don't know, I eyeball it and it sometimes works. This time it worked for me, thank goodness. He turned out very chibi and cute. Now I'm using a dopper tool to dop the eye whites in, the shine of the eye in. Now I'm using liquitex high gloss varnish over the teeth and the eyes. Just the outside of the eyes, because if I do the inside of the teeth it will actually stick the jaw together and make it hard to move. And that's him done. I'm actually really happy with this, and his magnet holds him onto the base really, really nicely. I'm quite happy. So you can still slide around, but he holds on quite nice. And that's him. So definitely check out Mr. Mosasaur's stuff and keep an eye on his server, Mosageddon, for how you can win this guy if you're interested in winning him. And I wish you the best of luck. Bye!